Hello everyone, my name is Kumar and welcome back to our channel Kumar Programming. This is the 16th part of this series where we are building a e-commerce project as online shoe store in Next.js 15 and React 19. In our previous session, we have implemented our sign-in functionality where we have created our schema for sign-in, and also we created server actions for sign-in and sign-out, and then we hook up those server actions to our this sign-in form, right? And user were able to log in successfully by providing their credentials. So here I'm providing my credentials 12345 6 as a password, right? And user were able to redirect to the home page. Now in this session, we are going to implement sign out functionality. So let me show you quickly how exactly it is. So if you see in our production version, if user is successfully authenticated, then here we are showing a button with their initial name. And once user will click on this, here we'll see the name and their email. And here we are seeing the sign out button. This user profile, order history and admin that we are going to implement later. But specifically in this session, we are going to cover this sign out button, right? And once user will sign out, we will see this home page with sign in button, right? Now let's implement it. And before we start, friend, I'm sharing a quick update on how I have set up my project so that every time I push my code to GitHub, it's coming to my repository here in the master branch. And also, as suggested by one of our viewers, I'm keep maintaining here all the branches individually after completing each and every sessions, right? So if you see here we have list of all the sessions with their code, right? So if you are following this series, you can take the reference of this code, right? And I have connected my GitHub repository to the Vercel. So whenever I commit and push the changes, Vercel automatically build and deploy the latest version, right? This means my each and every update is live almost instantly, right? And this setup saved me a lot of time and ensuring my project is always up to date and make the collaboration super easy, right? So if you are following this project, I would highly recommend you to integrating your GitHub with Vercel environment. All right, now let's start with the implementation of our sign out functionality. So first of all, we are going to implement this user button. Once user is signed in, then we are seeing here a user button after signed in, right? So first we are going to implement this user button, and after that we will implement our sign out button, right? Now let's start implementing it. Flip to the Visual Studio. Now first of all, we are going to create a component inside our components folder, shared header. Here inside header, we are going to create another component as user button, right? And inside this SFC stateless function component, this would be user button, right? And inside this return, I'm going to use this React fragmentation, and here I'll just write user. Okay. Now inside our menu component, here if you remember that we created our sign in, right? Sign in button. So now we are going to replace this sign in button with our user button component, right? So now I'll just replace this with user button component. Okay. And this user button is getting imported from user button, and this is going to be replaced here as well, right? Because we are using this user button in our sheet as well for the smaller screen. So I'm going to replace this as well with user button, right? Now let's save it. See, now here we are seeing this user, right? Now next thing what we will do inside our user button, we will paste whatever we have cut from our menu section, right? So this is our button. Let's import it, everything here. Component UI button, link should be next link, right? And this user icon should be imported from Lucid React. Yep. Now in this component, we are going to use our drop down menu component, since we have to show our user name, their email and sign out button, right? So now let's implement our drop down menu. So here we are going to use ShadCN menu, ShadCN drop down menu. So this is our ShadCN menu, and we have already implemented this drop down menu. So we are not required to add it. We are going to import all these. So we are importing it here, right? And also we are going to use this drop down menu. For the time being, I'm going to paste it over here, right? Now what I need, I want to show this button on the basis of user session. If user session is there, then we should see the button with the user initial name And if we don't have the session, we should see this sign in button, right? So now let's first get our session, and we know that how we can get our session. We learned in our previous session. So here we are going to check as const session equal to await auth, right? We are going to use auth, and this auth needs to be imported from our at auth, right? And if we have made this await, we must have to make this function as async, right? Now we have our session, right? So now we are going to check if we have the session. If we have the session value is null, right? Then we are going to return this button, right? So I'll cut this and let's paste it over here, right? Otherwise, we are going to return user button, right? And I'll comment it for now. We are going to use it a bit later, right? So now if you see here, since already we have signed in, so here we are seeing the user button. Now I'll just remove our session. So here inside our application, we have to remove this cookie, right? So this cookie, we can clear it, right? Now if you see, if I just refresh this, I would be seeing this sign in button over here, right? So it's working fine. Now let's implement our user button. Now we are going to work on this user button. So first of all, inside this user button, we want to show the user first initial name. So here we will get initial name first, const initial name, right? And then here we can get this initial name from session, right? If you remember that once we are returning our session, see here inside our auth, and if you see here inside our callback, this session is returning user ID, role, and name, right? So we are returning these three things. So we can get the username from here, right? So now let's get this from here, session dot user, and we are going to use this null coalesce operator. It means that if you are having this session user dot name, then it's going to return the name. Otherwise, it's going to return undefined, but it's not going to return the error, right? So here we are going to just check user dot name, and again we are going to give this null coalesce operator. After that, we are going to get the first character, right? So character at 0 position, right? And then we are going to make this uppercase, dot to uppercase, right? And if we found this value as null, then we are going to replace with u, right? Whatever you want, you can give from A to Z here, right? So now we would be having our initial name. Why it is giving error? Because here we have to put dot, right? Yeah, now it should be fine. Now we have our initial name. Now inside this return, we are going to create a div. Here div dot, I'll give the class name as flex, right? And gap2 and item center, okay? And inside this div, we are going to use our drop down menu. So here we have drop down menu, right? So I'm just going to use this drop down menu, right? And I'll remove this. Now it's not needed, right? And yep, let's save it. No, it's not coming in a proper format. Let's format it, Control A, and format our document. No, it's not formatting. Okay, we will copy it once again from our drop down menu here. Just copy this and paste it inside our div. Okay, fine. Now in this drop down menu trigger, we are going to add our user button. So here we are going to add a child component. So here I'll mention as a as child, right? And inside this, I'm going to create another div.flex.item center. Okay. And inside this, I'm going to define a button here, right? I'll give the variant as ghost because we don't want this with a border and all, right? So we will just mark it as a ghost, right? And I'll give this class name as relative, and I'll give width as 8, and also give the same height as 8, and I'll give the rounded full to make it completely round, right? And I'll give some margin from the left, ml2, and make it flex and item center. Okay, also do the justify center, right? And I'll give the background color bg gray around 300. Okay, so now we would be having our button here. I'll close this tag, right? And inside this button, we are going to text our initial name here, right? Now let's save it and see. if we are able to see our first sign in, here just put our admin@admin.com and password 123456, right? Now sign in. So as expected, once user is signed in, we should be seeing this user button with the initial name, right? And now we are going to implement this sign out button over here, right? So see, once the user is clicked on it, we are able to see this profile billing team. So we are going to replace this, right? At the place of my account, we are going to write username and email, and here at the place of subscription, we are going to use our sign out button. Okay, so now let's do the changes. Now in place of my account, we are going to have our username and email, right? So here we are going to implement username, but here I'll give some class to this drop down menu content as class name. I'll give width because we have to give email ID and username. So here I'll give width around 56, and inside this drop down menu, I'm going to take another div.flex call, and we will give some space at the y-axis between the items. So here is space y1, okay? And now inside this div, we are going to take two divs, one for username and one for email. So here div.text small, font medium, and I'll give leading none, so it won't have any line height, leading none, right? And inside this div, I'm going to use our session user username, right? Here session dot user dot name, right? And similarly, we are going to have for email ID. So right after this, we will have here session dot user dot email, right? And I'll do some small changes over here. This would be text sm, text small, right? And this also would be text sm, right? And here we would be having text muted foreground, text muted foreground, right? And we will remove this font medium, okay? So we can easily recognize our email. Now let's see how it look like. See, now here we are seeing our name, and here we are seeing our email, right? Perfect. Now we are going to implement our sign out button. Now here under the label, if you see here, we have a drop down menu separator, right? And after that we have drop down menu item. And in this menu item, I'm going to just comment this one so that we are going to use later on, and I'll remove this one. And in place of subscription, we are going to implement sign out, right? So inside this drop down menu, since sign out is going to perform a server action, sign out server action, so we are going to use a form over here, form, right? And inside this form, we are going to pass action, and action would be our sign out action, right? So if you remember that, we have our sign out user, right? Sign out user action, which we have created, right? And I'll give the class name as widthful, right? And inside this form, we are going to have a button. So I'll just copy this button from here, right? And I'll write the text inside this button as sign out, right? And I'll do the class change here. So we will remove this class name from here, everything, and we will give the class name as widthful, and I'll give padding at the y-axis, so py4, right? And I'll give at the x-axis px something 2, and I'll give height 4, okay? And it should be at the start position, so I'll give justify start. Now let's save it and ensure this sign out is imported from our user actions, right? So it seems good. Now let's see. Here we are having some padding, right? So we will remove the padding from here, our menu item. So let's remove the padding, and here this drop down menu item, here I'll give the class name as we will remove our padding. So padding 0, and we will give some margin from the bottom, right? 1, margin bottom 1, right? Now let's see. Yep, it looks good, right? Here we have our username, then we have our user email, and here we have our sign out button, right? So now if we sign out, now user has been signed out, and we can see this home page along with the sign in button, right? Now inspect it, and we could see that we are not seeing our cookies anymore. See, we don't have our cookies anymore. Here this is something callback URL, but we don't have our token anymore, right? Now quickly we are going to log in and see how it looks like in the smaller screen. Here we have sign in. So now here we are going to sign in, and here we will put our email address, and password 123456 and sign in. Now we should be seeing now here also we are able to see our user button, and here we have this option, right? Because we have replaced in our seat as well. Okay. And now if you see here we are seeing this token, and once user will sign out, this token is getting removed from cookies, right? So user is not authenticated anymore. And if it's not authenticated anymore, then we are able to see this sign in button over here, right? Now let's quickly do some cleanup in our code. So if you see here in this menu, we are getting some error at the top. This user icon is not needed anymore here because we have moved our button to our user button component, right? Let's format this page, format document, and here inside our user button, we are going to remove this commented code, okay? We will implement it later on once we will implement our user profile update and order, right? Now let's format this one as well. Format document, yeah. Now we are good, right? Now what I'm going to implement in our next section, which is about the user registration, right? Sign up. So once user will click on sign up button here, then we should see a sign up page, right? Since we don't have sign up page, so we are seeing this page not found page, right? So in the next section, we are going to create our schema for sign up, and we are going to create our sign up page. And at the end of this video, friends, if you found this tutorial helpful, do me a favor, like this video to support me and my channel, and subscribe my channel if you haven't already done so far for more content like this, and share this with your fellow developer who might find it useful. And if you really love my work, then consider buying me a coffee to support for more free tutorials. Link is given below in the description. Alright, that's all for the day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, take care and keep learning.